much cozier. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to my wonderful panelists. So I'll start with Jolene. She's closest to me. This is Jolene Anderson. She's an experienced investor, and she invests with impact, usually health or environment. So we all like investors like that. She's the managing director for Vector Point Ventures. She's also an advisor for various businesses, bioscience organizations, and consulting firms. She was chapter president for a Keiretsu Forum chapter for several years. She's also been a real estate broker, a consultant, investor relations specialist. So she's got diverse experience, but all of it is now dedicated to helping founders. So thank you for being here, Julie. Then we have Richa, and you will remember Richa's name. It's a cool fact about Richa. To remember her name, you say Rich. Richa. How cool is that? So we're all here, like perfect theme. Okay. So Richa is an entrepreneur. She's a board member, and she's founder of Koshe, a wellness brand that combines natural, traditional ingredients with proven modern science. So she bridges ancient wisdom to scientific validation. She has an interesting education background. She's an engineer. She's an MBA. She has a degree in women's entrepreneurship. And she's had 20 years of corporate experience, and now she's decided to launch and become a founder because, as we heard earlier, like when you know you need to do it, you just have to do it. So, then we have Kate Isner. Kate said, I first met Kate when her and her co-founder, her and her co-founder were raising money. And they've raised money, they've built their business. They have a very cool business called W Marketplace, which I encourage you all to check out. And it's dedicated to closing the gender gap. So we love what she does. She's a business leader with over 20 years of experience. She's had executive roles in Fortune 500 companies as well as startups. She's lived and worked globally. She's a glass ceiling breaker. She's done lots of different things, and she's also written a book called Breaking Borders. So that's another book besides the one we heard about today. It's another one on my list as of today. So thank you for being here, Kate. I'm very excited about this. Oh, and I am Dana Sather Robinson. I'm your local angel investor, and I'm a pitch trainer. So I'm also a founder because I started Pitch for Impact, which is a framework for creating pitches. And I invest through EA to Angels, which is climate tech. Okay, now you know us. Find us on LinkedIn. We post about lots of interesting things. Okay, so I want to talk about like women in entrepreneurship and fundraising and the whole environment and how we can learn from that and support each other. So this is all about positive things on improving. And so I'm going to ask Jolene something first. As the experienced investor on the panel, how does the presence of women in venture capital, how's that evolved over the last 10 or so years?
Well, there's a Helen Reddy song.
Oh, you get to hold on that mic.
Helen Reddy had a song, I Am Woman, Watch Me Roar. Okay, so now I'm dating myself. So in 2010, there were 3 women-led VC funds. 2020, there were 300. So we're going in a positive direction. In 2023, there out of the $107 billion in venture money, 3% were from women-led VCs. So we have a lot of work to go, but we're getting there. But we also have another fabulous statistic. 70% of the wealth in the world and the US will be in the hands of women by the end of the decade. So what are women going to invest in? Where will they put their money? What do women care about? So all these trends, like from femtech, health, environment, because let's face it, we invest because we want to leave this planet better for our children and grandchildren. And that's what money is for.
Thank you. Thank you, Jolene. I knew she would have some good stats for that. Okay, I'm going to ask another question now for Richa, got pronounce that correctly. So you've been in lots of different environments, and you've done some, studies as well as things when you're on things you're not when you're not on an actual job. So I'd want to understand, how does unconscious bias affect the way women founders are perceived in business meetings and investor meetings?
Correct.
Give me some examples of things that you've
thank
noticed.
you for asking that question, Dana. An unconscious bias, because it is so pervasive, and the term unconscious, many times we don't even know that we are being biased towards women founders or underrepresented communities. I was talking to one of the directors at SBA, and that was earlier this year, and she said, Richa, you will not believe this, but right now we are doing a training for all the bankers that give loan through SBA to businesses that go through SBA. And what we have seen lately is that they are giving loans to mostly men-owned companies and very less to women-owned companies. And it is something that they are also not aware of. And we are doing training for them on that unconscious bias that exists, and so that they are more open to the business ideas that women bring forth to them, and they invest and they provide loans to those. So that's just an example of how unconscious bias is seeped into the fundamentals of our society. Not many times that's realized.
Right. So people just don't take women as seriously because they think it's more of a hobby than a business.
That is correct. That's what I've also heard from many business founders, that especially if they're in traditional industries and they go to these vendors and such to collaborate, and then they are not taken seriously because it's just something that they are doing to pass their time, or not necessarily to build a business out of it.
Lifestyle business.
Right. Okay.
Correct.
I think Kate has a good example. She's bursting to tell.
No, I was just going to say it's lifestyle business. And why would you want to do that? The data says that women-owned businesses outperform those owned by men and women, or men. And the same is true with women-led businesses. They outperform something like 85%. So it's significant. So bring the data.
Okay. All right. So actually, while you have the mic over there, Kate, how can the business ecosystem, as you see it, be adjusted to better support women entrepreneurs and also investors?
Well, it's a big ecosystem, first of all. And so there's lots of that, so many solutions. But one of the first things is listen, learn how to listen. And I think that as the ecosystem, we as humans classify people, right? You see them, you hear them, we organize that way. And you really have to be really aware to not do that and to really think about it. And I think, as a founder, I spend a lot of time saying, here's what I would guess you're assuming about me. And here's what is real. And so, and everybody's got shocking facts. I worked for Microsoft for 200 years, but I'm a 2018 college undergraduate. So access different. And so when I talk about that, people make assumptions when you go, oh, you worked at Microsoft, you must have $1 gazillion and do all these things. Nope. Let me talk to you about what the reality is. And so I think that that's the thing. And I think we as women, and I've never been a man, so I can't speak to that, but we as women tend to not bring up controversial things or not want to make people uncomfortable. And I am, and Dana will tell you, I am the #1 make you uncomfortable kind of founder. I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to say, nope. I've started many investor meetings with, I know that you're going to invest 98% of your money in companies that underperform. So I know that, so let's start there. And they go, what? And then if you have data and then you show them, you get them to listen instead of assume. So.
Okay, thank you. Richa, I'd like to ask you that question about how can we better support women in the whole ecosystem as entrepreneurs and investors.
Correct. I think one of the biggest I guess, what I saw when I was working on this project for Mayor of Bellevue is role models. Having more and more role models, women who are doing great work and from all walks of life. When I met women entrepreneurs who are moms, who are immigrants, who are even bachelor degree, probably they earned much later in life. As Kate said, there are women and many people with interesting facts, and they are doing entrepreneurship, and they are fighting every day, and they are making it better. They're generating example for themselves. The reason I started entrepreneurship for my niece. I come from a family where my dad is a successful entrepreneur, my brothers are successful entrepreneur, my husband is a successful entrepreneur, and I was like, I have to do this. I have to change this trajectory. I have been talking about this. But it's scary. I have been doing great in corporate, big paycheck. When you work in tech, all of this life is great. But who wants to give all that up for entrepreneurship? But then it became something, a challenge that I wanted to take myself on, a journey that I wanted to take myself on, because end of the day, I have to sleep with myself. I have to be honest with myself. And what inspired me really was those role models. In spite of all these degrees that you talked about, in spite of such a successful career, being a leader in big tech, still I was scared. And when I met with these women entrepreneurs who are so happy and content with their life, being an entrepreneur where they can be a daughter, taking their parents, the flexibility that they enjoy that comes with being their own boss. So I have been celebrating those role models. I have been whenever I can, invite them to talk to larger group of people, showcase that there are challenges, but it also comes with its own satisfaction and reward of being an entrepreneur. So that's one thing, I guess, if I have to say one thing, that's one thing we should all be looking for.
Okay, great, thank you. Do you have anything to add to that, Jolene?
I think some of us knew from a very early age we wanted to do something big. And I think being an entrepreneur, as our Earl, I guess it's Earl, had to share, I absolutely loved your thing. You know when you're an entrepreneur and it's in your blood. And no matter how much they pay you, it will never be satisfying because you have something bigger to do. Some reason to get up in the morning and something to fix or something to create. So I've always been a creator since I was very small, and I knew it. And so, you know, that's just part of the journey. No, I guess part of it is as you get older and wiser, you know who you are and you know who you aren't.
Right. Okay, hold on to the mic. Jolene, how can women in venture capital influence the kind of founders and businesses that receive funding?
Well, first of all, I think it's hugely important to pay back from day one and become part of the ecosystem and collaborate and mentor. I see one of the really amazing founders here who also writes fabulous children's books. So thrilled to have her in the crowd. But, you know, I think it fuels us. We think we're helping others, but really getting up and helping other people succeed gives you fuel. It's far better to give than to receive. So find a tribe, find groups. I happen to be on the board of connectcapital.org in Utah, have been mentoring them through startups, women-led companies for their We Rock for about 9 years. And it's very, very exciting to see the growth of women supporting women. But it's also very exciting to see a lot of, you know, male entrepreneurs who've been successful. They've had serial exits. One of my best mentors was the former state director of commerce, who then later became the head of the SBA in the state of Washington. He was one of my best mentors. I wish he was here today. His name was Dan Ward. So anyway, I think it's really incumbent on all of us to really support our ecosystem. We enrich each other by growing our ecosystem.
Okay, thank you very much. So, actually, while you have the mic there, reach out. What are the challenges and also the opportunities you've observed in fundraising for the underrepresented sectors, like women?
I think the challenges are the lack of network. They don't have access to network. A lot of times in the entrepreneurship and the funders and when you're raising capital, it happens through warm leads. Somebody knows someone, makes an introduction, you get time with the investors to present your case. Many times underrepresented groups, they do not have that kind of warm leads. And then you end up just cold emailing after emailing, which can be very frustrating because you don't even know if it's making to somebody's inbox or is it going into spam folder and whatever. So I think that's one of the biggest challenge for underrepresented communities, to have access to those leads, that network, where it's personal. And I think one of the advantages, or what did you say?
The opportunities.
The opportunities is if there was any time for underrepresented communities to be in entrepreneurship, right now is the time. At least in a lot of places and a lot of areas, there are conversations happening. Even folks who have unconscious bias are kind of recognizing that because the talks are happening, their articles are there. And if you are a little bit in a network, you talk about them, you're recognizing. So I think that's where the opportunity is as well, that right now those conversations are happening.
Okay, thanks. Kate, same question. Talk about the challenges and the opportunities around fundraising.
So I want to echo what we just said about the warm introduction. It's about relationships, right? You have to build a relationship with investors. And no matter how you do that, you have to do it over a period of time, because emailing them with the best idea and the most profitable idea, and you're going to make money, and no one cares. They care about you. And you have to meet them, and you have to talk to them, and you have to cultivate them like a lead. And I think that sometimes we wait till it's too late. You know, we've got no burn, or we just started making calls and oh my gosh, we're in such a big hurry. And so I think that that's one of the things that is challenging, but a huge opportunity that is not insurmountable. It's easy. I mean, just kind of step back and think, I have to slow down and build a relationship with this person and know who that person is, know who you're targeting. Because if you're targeting, like, Jillian, if I was targeting you, that would be crazy for what I do. Because I talk to women about building e-commerce businesses and getting into the digital economy. That's not where you invest. And so while I love her, it wouldn't be the right relationship. And so you've got to be really thoughtful about that. And I think that's a challenge, because who has time for that as an investor or as a founder? I had no time. You know, you're trying to run a business, and Earl talked about this. You're trying to run a business and you're trying to expand it. And what's your goal next week? And oh my God, how many employees do I need? And you know, that is a huge, huge issue. 3:28 usually in the morning is sort of when that sort of goes off in my head, and I'm like, oh my God, next week, what do I have to do tomorrow? Oh, you know, and so I think that that's an interesting piece. I also think an opportunity for us to be more articulate about what we're doing, because that's another big place that we can control. And I don't know if that's just women, but I think that being articulate about where we are today, exactly what we need and exactly what we'll do with it. And I think that as we're in it, we forget that not everyone knows that. And so that's kind of basic, and you know, we've talked about that. It's like, be succinct about what you're going to do about boiling the ocean is probably the third step, but you got to get the first two in there.
Yes, yeah. That's a really good point. I was having this conversation with an investor recently, and we realized, like, women in particular get very hung up on talking about what they're building right now, and they want to prove that, take me seriously because I can build something. Mm-hmm. But investors really don't care. Right. They need to come in and start with the vision. This is where my business is going to be in 5 years. This is how big this market is, and this is how we will impact our industry. Start with that.
And big.
And then investors will you'll get their attention. And then you can talk about, and you should take me seriously because I've already built the first step. And so it's, you know, this is really important when you're talking to investors, to make sure we talk their language.
And think big. I mean, that's the thing. Think big. And that's the other thing I think a lot of underrepresented founders do. They go, well, if I just, forecasted this and that's doable versus, well, actually, this is where I want to go. And, my business, we plan to touch 1 billion women entrepreneurs. I mean, the digital economy and e-commerce is a completely different thing for women. It's a game changer. No matter where you are culturally, no matter what your family obligations, you can have an online business. And so that seems very reasonable, and that's the vision I give all the time. So
Yes,
opportunity, think big.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So now we're all motivated. Okay. Okay, I have a question about, one thing that's hard. And maybe you've noticed this. Women founders have told me, and studies have shown this, that women are often asked more prevention questions than promotion questions after a pitch and in investor meetings. And what I mean by that, prevention questions is about the risks, like how are you going to cope with the competition? How are you going to overcome these cost and manufacturing barriers? And where the promotion questions are, tell us your vision. How big is this market? How big is it growing, right? So it takes the conversation down a very different path. So have you seen strategies or have ideas on how founders can navigate prevention questions to take more control of the conversation and into a promotion?
I'd say
narrative?
quickly, use your best PR training. That is a great question, but here's what I want to tell you about, right? I don't want to tell you about how much is this going to cost in the way they ask. Let me tell you about my vision and how we're going to accomplish that. Because that is, you're acknowledging, because if you don't acknowledge, you're in trouble anyway because it's investors. But so acknowledge what they said, and yep, that's great, but here I think is a more salient point or something that you might be more interested in a way that you can present it to turn it around into the positive versus the negative. And you really have to be listening for that and practice that, because it's sometimes hard when you got a room full of them. I'm asked because, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I might be more mature than a lot of founders. I'm asked all the time, how much longer are you going to work? I'm like, oh, you mean how long is it going to take me to reach my goal? Is that what you want?
Jolene, you've probably seen a lot of these investor conversations. Do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, I've heard that so many times. If I only had $1. Well, I think she hit it. You have to be really listening, tune out the buzz in your head, and listen to and pay attention on the person in front of you, because all investors are not the same. And really get to know the cues. And you're not going to sell all of them. But if you go to an event and you sell one who gets the vision, that's probably the best you could hope for. And that's a win.
I would say, again, to spin the question, this may not be, many times this may be coming from that unconscious bias that we are talking about. They see a woman and they fall into their own trap of those questions. Spin the questions. Many times, I'm also learning. Many times I start answering the question that asked, like diligently, because I'm that kind of a person, but I'm learning from politicians. It doesn't matter what question is asked of them. They will just start off by answering whatever they have rehearsed, whatever they know, whatever their story is. So I catch myself now, and I'm like, okay, I don't have to answer that. I have another better point that I have always been wanting to. I'm going to lead with that. And if they really are probing me, they'll come back and we'll cross that bridge if we have to. But so you have to and as Kate was saying, right, practice that and use those skills. I'm practicing that myself.
Yeah, actually, Q&A part takes lots and lots and lots of practice. And that's a module in my training, because most people they make a couple appendix slides and they think they're ready, and then things can really go derailed very quickly. But you still answer the question. But this is where you practice controlling the narrative to where you steer it towards the more promotion outcome. But it takes practice. Okay, so let's talk about some things where we're really learning from each other. What are some of the most common mistakes that you've seen women make in business? Like, what holds people back?
What I have seen women make in business, or what holds them back, is the vision. They don't see that large enough vision, the larger than life. They limit themselves. And that is where they need to underrepresented communities. And whenever we talk about women, it goes beyond saying it is always, most of the cases, true for underrepresented communities as well. We do not, it is scary for us to look at that larger vision. It scares because we like to be realistic. We want to, but then how do you become that realistic dreamer? And I have met women founders who are so successful in whatever they are running, and they have an opportunity to actually scale it and make it much bigger, but they are scared to do so. And they just take content and, oh, it's going so well, and I'm already kind of doing this, so why do I have to shake the boat? But it is, you really have an opportunity. You're doing it so good. You have done it once. You can do it more. Why not? But then, again, they limit themselves. So I guess that's one thing we all can learn from, reminding ourselves, if we are doing it good, let's just take it further and further and further.
Did you have one, Jolene?
Well, I would second that, but I also think it's surrounding themselves with people who may be at their same level. If you want to, build a bridge, you better surround yourself with someone who's built at least one bridge before. So it's really, really important to challenge yourself, and it feels uncomfortable sometimes. But yes, surround yourself with people who've done it, achieved it, and see the possibilities in you. And if you haven't found that yet, keep looking. Don't stay in your comfort zone.
Good. Did you have anything to add, Kate?
Yeah, I think women self-select out for all kinds of reasons, and a lot of them are family or obligations, and I don't think I have the right network, and I don't think I have the right education, and I don't have enough money. I think that use that network to say, yes, you do, or how come? Who has that measure? You're putting that measure on. And I see women that are concerned with lots of other things besides their business. And I think, there's some that want to grow really big, and there are some that are satisfied, but you got to ask the question of yourself and say, what do I want my business to be? And what am I willing to do to get it there? And I think that that's a really interesting thing. And I think, as, women supporting women, I think will change the world. And to supporting them and asking those questions, not judgmentally, not everybody wants to be gazillion users, but asking them and saying, okay, I want to support you. So where do you want to be is a really important thing. And I'm terrible about this. I never say no to mentoring or talking to other founders now. I spent so many years being so busy, and I realized I didn't have a network and I didn't learn anything. And so from all the women entrepreneurs that I talk to now, I learned something from every single one of them. And so talk to people, even though it's scary, it's exposure, but talk to them.
One, yeah.
Can I add one
Yeah.
idea? 99% of the decks we see do not have an exit strategy, do not talk about how you're going to get your investors their money back. If you want to disarm investors who are used to not seeing that information, study your exit strategy, study your industry, know your multiples, know how big you need to get and how many funding rounds you're going to need to get to be that size, and how much you're going to return on their dollar. That's the most disarming thing any entrepreneur can do.
That is so true. And if it wasn't picked up by the mic, is like disarm investors and tell them their biggest concern right away. How's this going to exit? What's going to be my return on money? How many rounds am I going to take? What's that look like when it goes really big? And because, investors are interested in how to make money. And one of the things that investors are watching for is, how is this going to be wildly successful? And how am I going to make money? It's always in the back of their mind. And if you tell them right away, what that what that vision looks like and how that's going to be, then they're like, wow, I should take this seriously. Now you've got their attention.
And how long?
And how long? Yeah.
So
this is not going to take 20 years.
Don't tell me
This
it's
is
going to
gonna
be
take
12 years.
7 or 5 or 3.
Probably 6 months.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Ron, for adding that. And one mistake that I see a lot of women make is because they're trying to prove themselves. They're waiting for things to be perfect, but things are never perfect. So don't wait for your product to be perfect, for your pitch to be perfect, for everything to be perfect before you talk to investors or customers or other people, because it's never perfect. And by the time you think that it's almost perfect, then you're going to get feedback that it's on the wrong track and you have to pivot, like Earl did. So it's get out there before it's perfect. Don't wait for perfectionists. I'm saying that because that's my biggest thing that holds me back. So I have to keep reminding myself as well. Okay, so I heard an investor say recently that relationships move this industry more than any other industry. And so how can women entrepreneurs build those relationships early and be smart about it?
I can start about that. I'm not a good person to answer that question. I have almost spent more than 20 years of my career, and that is one area where I'm starting now. I haven't been a person traditionally to build. I've been good at building network, not probably building, but mostly knowing people and helping them, but not leveraging in a way to my advantage. And I now believe that is one of the ways, because it's a two-way street. You help people, people help you. You set an example for other people. There is no charity. And I've always felt like I'm asking for a favor. There is no favoritism. And those are some of the hard truths that I have learned lately. So building a network and leveraging the network is something, leveraging the network part is something that I'm totally new to. And I'm still learning that. But I have learned the opportunity and the strength in network, where we all help and support founders and funders each other in terms of knowledge or connections and in whatever way. And I am excited to be on that journey.
Okay. Kate?
Find a networking buddy. There is nothing worse in the whole world that freaks me out. Now, you guys have talked to me a little bit. Walking into a room and networking. When people go, oh, we have an hour of networking, I'm like, ugh, I'm not going until 5 minutes before the show starts. It freaks me out. Find a networking buddy, because it's a hard thing to walk into a room cold. And so find somebody, and I have 2 of them that I always go, okay, there's an event. Let's go. And take somebody, because it's a much easier thing to do. And it's super practical, because everything you said about networking is exactly right. You have to build it. You have to ask, but it's hard to do. So you got to start the relationship, but take someone with you to expand that. And you'll quickly know who should be in your lasting network and who's an acquaintance.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Jolene, did you have anything to add?
Yes. Be very targeted. There's so many things to go to. But be very specific. What do you hope to achieve, and who do you want to meet at that party? And do some research. I spend an hour and a half every day doing research in global health, oncology, brain cancer, climate change. I want to know who the movers and shakers are, who's getting funded, who's not getting funded, what the challenges are. But you can't do everything. You have to save your energy, but really be very specific. And, ask for advice, you get money. Ask for money, you get advice. But ask people who are really great networkers in your space who've already achieved that. Who would you recommend? Who are you willing to introduce me to? You've already paid it forward. You've spent a lifetime paying it forward. Now it's time to ask.
That's right. And asking is sometimes the hard part. Yeah, I want to add one thing about that relationship building. An investor told me recently that she tells founders, the first time I meet you should not be your pitch. She wants, she says between her and her partners, they do events every week all over the country. And so there's opportunities to find them. So if there's an investor that you want to meet, find out where they're speaking. Find out where they're going. Maybe they're at a conference, and go there and really try to meet people. Or maybe you connect on LinkedIn and send them an article or ask them questions about their industry. Build relationships before you're asking for money. Because it's kind of like dating, right? You don't meet somebody and go, let's get married. You get to know them first. And investors want to get to know, they're investing money in a founder, they really want to get to know them. Mm-hmm. And you need to give them space to get to know you. You guys have anything to add on that one?
People will never turn you down if you want to have an informational. I mean, 98% of people, I want to know about what you do. I want to know who you are. I want you to tell me about LinkedIn. Do it. I do it every single day to lots of people. They won't turn you down. If you say, I want millions of dollars, maybe.
Yeah. Don't ask for money the first time you meet somebody.
The second time.
Thank you. So, did you want to add anything?
And please don't give the pitch while they're standing and getting ready to leave the room and their mouth's full of food. Don't give them your 3-minute stump speech.
Yeah. So if you're cleantech or health and you want to meet Jolene, do not pitch her tonight. You say, "Can we talk? Can we meet? Give me your card." Right? Let's build a relationship first. I think we have time for a few questions from the audience.
So, because we have a streaming audience as well, and microphones can do, the feedback thing. We've got this little microphone. So if you want to ask a question, I'll bring you this little microphone, just so the people here can.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
But please use your outdoor voice when asking a question here, so everybody in the room can hear. Anybody have a question?
Thank you so much for the panel. That was it's been really good. I'm really curious. Each of you represent such a different view into entrepreneurship. I'm really curious about what equity looks like in venture capital and entrepreneurship in 50 years, both for women, minorities, like just what equity looks like, and do you see that as the vision for what's possible? Like, do you see it to be more equitable for founders and investors in the future?
You do research. I'll let you answer.
Oh, absolutely. Remember that statistic about 70% of the wealth being in the hands of women by the end of the decade? That's definitely going to change the numbers. And we have some other political things happening. And we're all raising strong daughters. And some of us are raising really strong granddaughters who are super achievers. I don't know where they get it. And I think it's really important that we hold that vision really high for the next generation and they'll challenge us too. I see it growing exponentially. Doesn't mean that it's going to be an easy path, but we have a tribe to support each other.
True. I definitely second that. That's the vision and the hope, and that's why we work hard every day. All of us, all of you guys are working hard. Being here, each and every women, underrepresented community, or people who are becoming aware of that unconscious bias, and they are mindfully, intentionally taking steps to support each other. We, all of us as a community, are working hard to change this outcome and make this a better place for all of us, for us, for our kids, for our grandkids, and for the generation. So that's the hope.
We do a lot of work globally. And we're seeing that investment go from things like USAID. They are investing in gender equity and teaching entrepreneur skills. And so in the developing world, that is happening. In the developed world, I would venture to say that sometimes the US is behind other countries in that. And so, I think that there's a lot of momentum and we have a lot of catching up to do, but I'm optimistic about it.
Wondering, a strategy I've been more interested in recently has been allyship and bringing the men in my life or in my communities into the problem that I am having. I feel like a lot of times we kind of hide some of these problems from men. I'm wondering if that's a tool that any of you have used and how it's gone for you.
You know what? awareness building is really important because we have allies. You know, Ron, we've got some nice guys in the room that are aware of what's going on, and they're here to be our allies. And I think being honest about frustrations and about the real situation is really important. You guys have anything to add on that?
I would just second that. I have 3 sons and a husband that I live with, and so no daughters. But I can tell you, we're really straight about, here's what you said, or here's how you reacted, or here's where I need your help. So I learned to do it at home, and I do it all the time with outside. And I have lots of men advisors, and I have a few men that are investors in my company that are amazing advisors to me. And, I sort of go, did you say that because of, or did you say that? And have the conversation. And it's a great thing.
So I have sort of like 2 questions. One's sort of right next to your question. One would be, what are maybe an example, or for the folks who want to be allies, like maybe what's one tip you could offer of somebody who's had a standout of how they were an ally? And then the other thing is just kind of circling back to this wealth transfer to 70% being controlled by women. Do you see anything active for women to know about startups as an investment class? Or are they going to be sitting down with their local Edward Jones folks? And so I'm just curious if you're seeing anything happening in that space for the average investor.
For the allyship, I would say all of us need to find an ally in our lives. That the ally can be your significant other, your parent, your friend, your mentor, whoever, but somebody. And one way that you should find ally and how they show up for you is that they are there for you. When you need them, you call them middle of the night, whatever help you need with, they are there to support you. And they're also your critique. So when you need an honest feedback on something, they are not to sugarcoat it for you. And that is a true trait of being an ally. And you should always look for an ally to have that person in your corner. My husband is my biggest ally. And I'm glad for that, because the things that I'm able to do, he empowers me to do them. At the same time, he is my biggest critique as well. He will give me straight. And then sometimes when I doubt myself, he's like, how can you doubt yourself? You have been here. You have done this before. You will be great at this. You're overthinking it. So that gives me confidence. Just by him saying that gives me like, oh yeah, I can show up and I'm going to be the brightest one in the room. Maybe I'm not, but still, it doesn't matter. So those are the things that you have to look for in allyship.
Can I speak to the wealth one? The equity? I would say I have spent a lot of time in the last few years going through traditional investments and looking at what are my value investments and where do I move that and how do I make sure that happens. And there are very specific firms that will manage money differently than the big ones that will help you, and there's no penalty on that. I mean, some people think, oh, I'm value investing, I've got to give up X%. There's lots of options in there, and I'm happy to share what I've experienced for sure with anybody who wants to know that, because it is a thing. And we're in the process of transferring lots of our investments out of big investment firms and into a place where we can value invest that follows our values to transfer that money.
Did you want to add anything, Jillian?
Well, there's certainly a need for continuing education. I have seen, remember Smart Women Finish Rich? Morgan Stanley had that series years ago. A friend of mine did those workshops. I helped her in Ballard and Magnolia. It was on Saturdays, mostly young women in tech. But really, we still need more educational opportunities. There's some great books out there, but we need to educate women to be fearless. Obviously they need to be pragmatic, do their homework, check out the resources, but not be afraid to dip their toe in the water and think bigger.
Yeah. And there's also groups where people where people can learn how to become angel investors or learn how to be LPs in a fund. And there's a lot of events that happen here so that people can learn what's out there.